It's one of the biggest stereotypes of China, that they are known to copy, even steal designs and make their own versions of everything, and their military seems to fit that profile as well. When you look at their hardware, the resemblance is hard to ignore. Some of these have had permission to build, some not. Either way, it's enabled China to rapidly grow its military in the last 20 years. But first, our sponsor, CuriosityStream. If you're watching my videos, odds are you're like me and love documentaries and other educational content, in which case, you'll love CuriosityStream. They have literally thousands of non-fiction TV shows, documentaries, and more on topics ranging from history, nature, science, warfare, food, technology, travel, and many more, featuring 35 collections of curated programs handpicked by their experts, along with award-winning exclusives and originals. One topic I love learning about is quantum physics. Not that I understand any of it, but it's fascinating. And they have videos on just that. And you can use it anywhere, your phone, computer, tablet, or your smart TV. You can even download videos to watch later when you don't have service. Now, if you use code COVERT to sign up, it's just $14.99 for the whole year. So go down and check it out. Click on the link in the description, curiositystream.com/covert, and use that code COVERT to get that deal. Again, CuriosityStream. Like most smaller militaries, China originally purchased a good amount of its military hardware from one of the superpowers, in their case, the Soviet Union. Many of these they go on to produce domestically, under license. The Osa missile boat, for example, where they eventually built 130 domestically, which they call the Type 21. Another couple examples, the J-5, a licensed copy of the Soviet MiG-17, and the J-7, a version of the MiG-21. And this isn't uncommon. Turkey, for example, produced US F-16s domestically under license. As China has grown in recent years from a relatively weaker regional power to a potential superpower, they have sought to produce their own hardware. This allows their industry to grow and gain experience. They then retain complete control over the design, and can then sell the military hardware, becoming a major arms dealer on the world stage. Some others have an uncanny resemblance to other existing military hardware. Take the CH-4B Rainbow, for example. It's not hard to notice the similarities between it and the US MQ-9 Reaper. Similar shape, size, mission, weapons carried. However, you could say that is simply the most efficient shape for an inexpensive, long-endurance UCAV, similar to how many short-range ballistic missiles look alike, simply because that's the most effective and efficient design. Others, though, like the HQ-9 and HQ-15, look nearly identical to the Russian S-300 family. In fact, if it weren't for the label and distinctive camouflage, most people would likely not be able to tell the difference. Both are long-range air defense systems and operate in a similar fashion. Russia did give China permission to license its S-300 PMU-1 back in 1995, but China has taken that and developed it into many different systems, like the HQ-9, HQ-15, HQ-18, HQ-22, and possibly others that I'm missing. Along those same lines is the HQ-17. This one is a direct copy of the Russian Tor, a short-range air defense system designed to shoot down aircraft, helicopters, cruise missiles, etc. The story goes that China originally purchased a few Tor systems from Russia, and then later sought to buy a license to produce them domestically. Russia said no, so China decided to reverse engineer it and create their own, the HQ-17. Another example is China's Z-20 helicopter, nearly an exact copy of the American UH-60 Black Hawk. The Black Hawk is the military version of the civilian S-70 helicopter. In the mid-1980s, China purchased 24 of these civilian S-70s. After the US refused to sell more to China after the Tiananmen Square events, China reverse engineered it, eventually resulting in the Z-20. There are many more examples, but as mentioned before, some are still created under license, which allows China to make their own domestic versions. The H-6 bomber, which is an old Soviet Tu-16, which Russia itself hasn't used for almost 30 years. The Y-9 transport is Russia's AN-12, or the J-11, which is a licensed copy of the Su-27. But sometimes it seems like China's pushed it a bit too far. For example, the J-11B, and then later the J-15, which is based on Su-33s, both of which were not approved and built under license. This has caused some problems between the two countries, and reportedly is causing Russia to rethink future sales and transfers of military technology to China. This is likely to become a bigger problem for Russia in the near future. Russian weapons exports have been generally decreasing in recent years, down to almost half of what it was in 2011. With China looking to become one of the major weapons exporters, it's going to mostly take a bite out of Russian sales. That HQ-17 mentioned earlier is another example of this. China just announced that they'll be exporting it, directly competing with Russia's exports of Tor. Tor has been sold to over a dozen different countries. If, in the future, some decide to buy it from China instead, that could have massive implications for Russia's defense sector. It costs a lot of money to build factories to produce these weapons, so the more you can use those factories, the less expensive it becomes per unit. Say it cost $1 billion to build a factory to produce aircraft. If you could produce and sell 1,000 aircraft, the divided cost of that factory adds only $1 million to each. But if, say, you only produce 100 aircraft, that price, including the factory, adds $10 million to each. It's a problem the US is also seeing with the cost of the F-35. What this means for Russia is their own aircraft could become much more expensive, meaning they can't operate as many, where for China, they can get a lot cheaper the more they can sell. Another massive cost is the actual development and design phase. The US spends billions and billions of dollars developing single weapons, and that's not even counting the actual cost to produce them. Being able to skip that step completely by stealing technology from others saves a ton of money. While there are some systems that have just been directly copied, China often does go through and make adjustments and improvements to them. That HQ-17, for example, uses a different radar, has a data link to connect to other Chinese systems, and their own IFF system. This shows that not only can they reverse engineer different systems, but also understand it to a point where they can improve upon it and make their own. There's been allegations that China, through cyber attacks, has stolen US plans and blueprints for things like the F-35 and other stealth technology, and they then later came out with their own stealth fighters, like the J-20 and the J or FC-31. Whether they were created using stolen US technology or not, they are not direct copies. This again demonstrates China's ability to adapt technology into their own designs. However, if and when China surpasses the US and Russia in terms of military technology, it will no longer have anyone to copy from. Developing state-of-the-art technology from scratch isn't easy, and isn't cheap, and they are getting to that point now. The DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missile, for example, is really a first of its kind. There were some other attempts, such as the Soviet R-27K, and other technologies, such as maneuverable re-entry vehicles for terminal guidance, that's been around for over 40 years. But putting it all together and making it work is an incredible feat. And while China doesn't say how much they spend on development like the US does, the fact that it took 15 years from initial design to its first test against an actual ship at sea says a lot about how much it cost. And now, with hypersonic missiles, again, China is on the cutting edge, having to develop a lot of new technology itself. While the Chinese government appears to often claim that things are operational well before they actually are, it'll likely be several more years before they have some of these weapons in service. So, copying from others can save you a lot of money in design and development costs, but you can never be number one by copying others. If you cheat off your friend in school, the best you can possibly get is the same score as them. But China is getting to the point where they are beginning to develop their own advanced weaponry, in some cases more advanced than that of Russia and the US. Now they still have a lot to learn through trial, error, and the experience gained from it, but they've shown to be quick learners. So while a lot of China's current military is copies, either under license or stolen from others, that is quickly beginning to change.